My name is Harish Shekhar. I work as a technical consultant for the Active Directory Solutions team here at Manage Engine. On that note, a very good afternoon. I know I put you all behind schedule, approximately 15 minutes late to the party, but I hope to make up, the time lost. So before we get started, I just wanted to kind of run through what I have in store for you, and the topic is real-time Active Directory alerting. I know we do not have much time together, but with the time that I have, I've made this kind of interactive. Though this is a webinar, I want some feedbacks from you. So I have made a survey, and this link right here, let me just paste this on chat, and I would be able to share that link with you, and you all can take that and give me your feedback on certain questions that I want you all to respond to. Let me just paste that in chat. Just give me a quick minute. Let me just copy that real quick. It's ready. The audio control put me behind what I initially planned, so that's the reason I'm just copying and pasting it real quick. So let me paste it on the chat window real quick so that everybody can experience this. Perfect. Sweet. So I have pasted the link. So if you all could just take a couple of seconds to answer those questions. It's just an easy peasy 3 questions with all multiple choice, and you could respond to all of them, and that will give you kind of a run through on what I have in store for you today. So let's just take a couple of minutes to kind of access this survey. It's going to be real. I can see the answers live right here. So please go ahead and just respond to the question that I have. I just have 3 simple questions for you. And let's stay connected. It's just going to be a couple of clicks. I just need, the answers are mandatory, but you could choose multiple options. So you've got the the choice of selecting the respective answers. The first thing we'll talk about, why should one audit their Active Directory? All right. I've given you 4 choices. The first one is to secure one's Active Directory. Second is to ensure smooth operations. The third is Active Directory is the heart of your organization. And fourth is all of the above. So you get to pick what you need. And the second question is about service accounts. How do you monitor your service accounts? But even I can change the modulation a bit. Do you monitor your service accounts? So that is how people talk about service accounts these days. And the options that I have provided is certainly with confidence. The second is mostly when application breaks or when users notify us. The third is no, it is difficult to trace it. And fourth is no clue. So that's the second question that I had in store for you. And the third question, the last one, is which of the following permission changes brings chaos in your organization? Is it the domain level changes? Is it the GPO permission changes? Is it the schema permission changes? Or is it the DNS permission changes? So just last few minutes, I'm just waiting for most of the people to respond. I just wanted to get some feedback so that I've tailor-made the presentation in such a way that it suits the audience that I have today. Just not run too deep into history or just not showcase what we have. I wanted this to be real meaningful experience. So just the last minute so that I let people respond to those questions. It's a simple one. And I hope people do not need cheat sheet to answer this particular questions. This is something that every administrator across the globe would have experienced at least once in their lifetime. So perfect. I am almost done. I'm getting good responses. I've got good amount of people who took the survey, and you guys can see the answer. I'm not making stuff up. I have about 24 people who answered the survey, out of which 50% say all of the above. to secure one's Active Directory, to ensure smooth operation, and Active Directory is their heart. So I have 50% still saying that it's all of the above, and 25% are saying that it's the heart of their organization. So that's the reason they'll have to audit Active Directory. I have 17% to ensure smooth operations, many applications linked with Active Directory, one particular user, one credentials, getting them logged on to multiple platforms. So that is 17%. And I have 21% to secure one's Active Directory. So I would stop with this survey, and I will come back to the service accounts when I talk about scenarios. So let's get back to our presentation. And thank you so much for taking time to attend the survey. The panelists, a couple of housekeeping stuff before we actually get into our topic. Harish Shekhar, that's me, and I've introduced myself enough, and that should do. And Rakul would be on the chat line. Rakul and Vivin together have accepted the chat opportunity today. So in case if you have any feedbacks, you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to drop a line or two and you would get answers immediately. And thank you, Rakul and Vivin, for taking time and helping me, do this webinar. So I like to quote stuff, and Active Directory is a pretty intense topic. Of course, technology too. So I like to quote stuff. A wise man once said, and that wise man is Sun Tzu, The Art of War. What he taught me was, of course, the art of war taught everybody to rely not on the likelihood of enemies not coming, but on our own readiness to receive them. This is super, it goes really well with Active Directory. Not just with Active Directory, when you talk about security in general. There is no company out there who could boast big time about their security protocols because enemies are right outside. It could be either internal or it could be external, but they are going to attack. But it is how ready are you to receive them? Do you have the airtight response mechanism to let you know that there was a breach? And through that, do you have a self-defense mechanism just before your important information gets breached or stolen? Can you redo your organization the way it was? So that is what the art of war teaches us. So just as what Sun Tzu taught us, the reality is, the irony is, we are under attack. So just take a close look at this particular picture right here and just see the perpetrator, how he gets access to your Active Directory, or be it to anybody's Active Directory. He is the perpetrator and he sends out emails, and of course phishing is not a new term. Phishing is something that is happening every single day within the organization and to and fro organization. So the perpetrator assumes himself and sends out a legitimate email. Everything is perfect, the email, the body, the signature. What more do you look out for? So it contains an attachment, and just assume he's sending out about an email to 10 people. About 6 people would give you access to Active Directory. 6 people would give you access to Active Directory. And one among the 6 happens to be the local admin, happens to be the delegated admin, and happens to be a domain admin. And that is the way he gets access to your Active Directory. And once he gets hold of your Active Directory, that's the keys to your kingdom. That's the enterprise-wide access. So he could take care of your users, groups, emails, workstations, servers. And I had about 17% say that that is the heart. And of course, for smooth operations, and you would have multiple applications tied together with Active Directory. Okay. And if this is alarming, take a look at this stats. This stat was shared by our MVP, and he had attended the Microsoft conference, and they had published this particular slide, which was super alarming. Attackers sit unnoticed, and it all starts with a small change. All right. Just assume that you have, the attack is discovered. The admin has put in his hard work and he has discovered that particular attack. All right. That is the last step, but let's rewind, about 4 steps before the research and preparation. The first host getting compromised. That is about 24-hour window. And the domain admin credential compromised is 48 hours. So within 2 days after a breach, your domain admin credential gets compromised. All right. And the alarming fact, of course, the domain admin credential has been compromised, but the underpinning factor here is 150 days is the mean time that an attacker sits unnoticed. And if I was the attacker, and if you could give me your Active Directory, I could literally swipe out all the information about max 2 weeks time, and of course replicate your Active Directory too. But 150 days, imagine what an attacker could do to you. All right, 150 days, he sits unnoticed and he does data exfiltration. Okay, and that is when most of the organization starts feeling that they've been attacked. All right, attackers often target Active Directory and admins to gain access to business assets because Active Directory is the fulcrum and the revolving applications dwell along with Active Directory. So with that being said, what are the changes that needs to be audited? What are the changes that needs to be audited? Changes could be accidental. It could be a group membership privilege access that was quickly provided to a user. It could be attacks, brute force attack, or it could be a rainbow attack, or whatever be it. It could be attacks. It could be due to maintenance, your regular maintenance of shuffling people from one OU to another OU, and group membership here and there. If you're from a school background or an educational background, you do have users migrating from one year to another, and with that movement, the group membership changes, their OU structure changes, the manager, or so-called the teacher, the head master changes, everything associates with that specific maintenance movement. So that change needs to be audited. And last but not the least is the regulatory changes and its side effects. So just assume that you had a particular account in an OU, and that account was associated to applications, and all of a sudden, due to a regulatory changes, that account was wiped out, was deleted, or was moved. Look at the problem that it would bring to the surface pertaining to the respective applications. So these are the changes that needs to be audited. So with that, let's get to the basics. What is change monitoring of Active Directory? Change monitoring is simple to understand, but it's a bit complex when you get to the root level. It is tracking all changes that occur to objects in Active Directory. What are objects? It could be users, groups, computers, contacts, group policy, password policy, etc., printers. Anything that interacts with Active Directory is known as an object. All right, now that we've known the identity, what should you monitor? It's the vital W's. Who made the change? Which object was changed? When the change was made? What the new setting is and what the old setting was. That is where you compare what privilege they had and what privilege they have right now. So that is the key point. Of course, the rest of the vital W's are crucial too, because the whole globe goes crazy in knowing who did the change and what object was changed. So what did Microsoft give you? Of course, the bottom line is the Microsoft Active Directory technology, but was it helpful? Way back then, yes, but not to the level you expected. So that is where Microsoft introduced auditing to track Active Directory changes. I might have audience who might still have 2003 domain controller. So with that, you guys know what I'm talking about right now. There was no advanced auditing mechanism back then. But what happened then? You could audit success, failure for logon events, account management, directory service, logon events, object access, policy changes, system events, and process tracking, and of course, privilege use. And where do you get those information? It is drilled on the left of the image. You have the drill down where you could go ahead and check out these settings. But what was the limitation back then? There was no granularity. Your log size would beef up. for just a particular event that you want to track, you had to peruse through a lot of events, and that was not easy at all. Of course, being an administrator, sitting through your event viewer must have been one of the 101s that you should have undergone, and that is painful for anybody across the globe. It is not easy at all. So this was the limitation in 2003 to 2008. So how did Microsoft overcome this limitation and try to, ease out the options for admins in Active Directory or having Active Directory? That is when it introduced advanced auditing to track AD changes. So what was made simple? It broke down segments and it let you choose what you need. For instance, if you are a banking sector or if you are a healthcare sector, you could just worry about the account logon, the account management, privilege use, log on and log off. So that you could just pick and choose what you needed. So that, in short, is saving space on your, on your log size, and you just worry about what you need. So this was a leap from what Microsoft had given you back in 2003. And of course, the same pattern, it just built an additional layer called the advanced audit policy configuration, where you could go ahead and drill down and configure respective changes. So was it helpful? Be it in 2003 or be it in 2008 and above, was it helpful? So that is where I'm going to talk about issues with Event Viewer. What are all the problems with the Event Viewer? The security log size was too small. Of course, if you're right in front of your computer, you could remote into your domain controllers, or of course, this is something humorous where you could go ahead and increase the log size on your respective DCs. But the irony is maximum size of 300 megabyte, and theoretically it goes to few GBs. After so many years, still Microsoft gives you this limitation. So what does this imply? If you are a voluminous organization, you have people coming in, walking out every single day, you have critical information that gets saved from Active Directory, you have to save time and space. And if you don't do both, things are going to be overwritten. When I say overwritten, data is going to be lost and there is no way you could backtrack. And that pushes me to the second point. Events are hard to decrypt and not easy to analyze. For instance, one particular question that administrators would get their way is, when was the last time your domain admin group changed membership? Can you search that with the event viewer? Can you do a right click, find, and can you just type domain admin? The first event that you see, can you be super confident that that was the last time when a domain admin group changed membership? No, it does not do that. It just surfaces the first domain admin keyword that it searches. So the third point is events are logged on DC where event occurs. So multiple logs have to be collaborated. So you'll have to consolidate them and you'll have to do a special view. That is one healthy feature. I would recommend that to people whom I speak to. That is one healthy feature where you could consolidate logs and you could run a report, but that is not easy as you think. And alerting is not detailed enough, and the interface does not provide for reporting. Ever wondered why Microsoft does not give you an ability to report on something that it offers you to manage? That is a separate payment service. You need to pay up and you need to get reports, and that is a separate segment. So having talked about the issues, what are all the common events that admins want to track across the globe? The first thing is, of course, starting from scratch, when a new user is created, when password policy, local policy changes, when a critical group changes membership, and when any admin group, any admin, you name it admin, any of the group membership changes, you have to be notified. And when a service account is modified, any modification, reset, enable, disable, removed from group, And last but not the least is capacity planning. These are the events that, of course, you would have tracked. And in case if anybody is new to the auditing business, please, these would be the 101 and the 201 where you should get started. So as an administrator, where should you start? The first thing is know your users. Who's currently accessing a particular resource? How do you backtrack on this particular question? You first have to run through the ACL ACEs and run through their permissions. Get to know who's currently accessing a particular resource. Who could log on to these domain controllers? Who could log on to these computers? Who could access these file servers? So you need to run through the permission list against Active Directory. Second is capacity planning. When do they log on? When do they log off? How many machines do they log on to? What is the time duration that they spend on a particular machine? And the idle time. And when does a machine get started? When does a machine get shut down? All this plays a pinnacle role in capacity planning. And why is capacity planning important? As on date, about close to, I'm not going to quote any particular number, majority of the organization pay their users based on capacity planning. And that revolves around the work timing that they put at office. Of course, I'm just not going to get into the topic where they just pay with the timeline that they sit. It could be a help desk team. It could be an operations team, which needs to be there for 9 hours on call or in front of the computer. So that is how they sit through the capacity planning. And the third key point is security policy through GPO that covers your organization. You need to track every single GPO activity that is happening across your organization. And common attack scenarios. Let's assume this particular case. Frequently, one account gets locked out every now and then. How would you not believe that's an attack? What are all the logs that you're going to sit through and communicate with that specific user saying that why is your account getting locked out frequently? So you need to analyze the common attack scenarios, kind of analyze the patterns. And last but not the least is user session monitoring. Are you continuously tracking employees that have been compromised? Why is that I have this particular line on this slide? Because this is where attacks happen. Most of the organizations still believe attacks happen from outside. That is security vulnerability. I agree with that. But majority of the problems happen within too. It happens from the insider threat. I'm not making you uncomfortable, but the point is we'll have to accept reality that people amongst us are stealing information. So are you continuously tracking employees that have been compromised? Do you have an airtight response system where you could go ahead and get notified on every single status of that specific employee who has been compromised? The next thing that I would recommend is deep visibility. You must be able to see everything. Being an administrator, you need to have the archive view, and at times you need to have the magnifying view where you could go ahead and take a sneak peek on every single thing happening across Active Directory. You need to identify threats, you need to track attackers' activity inside the environment, and you need to present proof of illicit activity. Any tampering, any data stolen, any breach, any abnormal activities happening in your organization, you need to produce proof. And that is when you have your Active Directory under complete cover. That is just not it. Once you start auditing your Active Directory, there comes a key point that such as compliance, that becomes a byproduct, and forensic analysis, where you need to backtrack on every single activity that a user did against Active Directory. So these all are byproducts which administrators should consider when you do a long-term auditing on your Active Directory. And the organizations must think out of the box. What do I mean must think out of the box? You need to focus on early detection of breaches to minimize your window of vulnerability. You have to be instantly reactive. The key is actively preserving, aggregating, and reviewing data for post-event forensics. All right. Now that we have run through all this particular recommendations that I would suggest, this is the key point. What is the point of having bits and pieces of information scattered across your organization? You need to unify them, and you need to have a real-time monitoring approach that can also alert on any activity that you want the way you want. You need to correlate information, and that would increase the decision-making time. Why do you need to speed up the decision-making time? Because attacks happen right now. So you do not have much time to think when it happens. You have to cut it down immediately. So do you have that mechanism with you, instantly reactive? Tell you what the problem is and kind of mitigate the problem too. All right. So I'm going to discuss 3 key scenarios right here. And what are those scenarios? The first scenario is a common day-to-day activity. A domain admin group with just a few members. Only those few members have respective rights across your organization. Agreed. But we have many applications which talk using a service account, a user service accounts. And that applications are allowed to perform tasks. All right. And one such task is privilege escalation. That is the activity that was performed by the application. It could be AD Manager Plus, or it could be any other product. It could be any application, a web-based application that has done the job for you, but it has added that specific user to your domain admin group. So what could that be? It's a privilege escalation. So, and that was performed by any of those service accounts. You know what those service accounts are, because that is going to be my scenario too. All right. So with that in place, that's the activity that has happened. But how are you going to remediate that? How are you going to notify administrators real time? And when you notify the administrator, it has to simultaneously disable that user who has been disabled, who has just been added to that specific group, domain admins group, and in turn raise a ticket to your help desk tool. All right. Now that I've shown you this particular scenario, let me give you a deep down approach where we could go ahead and check out how this could be possible. Let me just log back in. I had a lot planned, but the computer which I had, everything had an volume, disappear, or volume was not working. So I had to jump into mode B, that is the demo site that we have. So please stay with me. I'm going to show you everything live, and let me build that specific use case for you. So let's get into new alert profile, and I want this to be known as privilege escalation. And I want this to be notify anyone who gets access to top groups. And I check the profiles and I go into group modification, and anything, for instance, the topic that I'm doing is modified security groups, modified admin groups. I press OK and I click on advanced. I could do threshold based alerts, I could do user based alerts, I could do business hour based alerts, or you could write your own filter through codes like the event code that you get. So right here under the user based alerts, I select those service accounts. So that will be the caller username. So for instance, let's do a SaaS, let's do guest, and let's do ADFS. If any of these 3 users modify this group, give me an email, real-time email, and mitigate the problem too. You could place a custom script. It could be a VB file, it could be a PowerShell, and that script would disable that user who was just added to that privilege group, and in turn would go into your help desk tool. So that is complete response mechanism according to me. So you've had a privilege escalation. You get to be notified real time. And if that was happened because of any one of the service accounts through the application, the tool recognizes that. It gives you an email. By the time you finish reading the email through the script, it would have disabled the user who was just added, and it would have raised a ticket to your help desk tool. So this is scenario one, which is happening every single day at most of the organizations. So please go ahead and, in case if you have experienced the same, just drop a line or two in the chat window and how you mitigated the problem. That will be greatly appreciated. So jumping on to scenario two, service accounts. So let's admit it, it isn't that easy to find out how many service accounts we have, and especially where they are configured. But there's got to be a way for this, right? There's got to be a way for this, and that is where I wanted to surprise you all. I don't want you all to be left alone. So that is where we have our free tool, where we are introducing service account manager. And using this, it's a free tool. Oops, hang on, got the wrong button. Yep, got it right here. It's a free tool which will tell you about the service accounts that you have. All you need to do is install this. It's for free, and we would list out all the service accounts mapped on those machines. All right, that is straightforward, and we've just didn't stop there. We are giving you managed service accounts too. That is for 2008 R2 and above, so you could function on your service accounts too. But how is this going to help you out? The first thing is finding out where you have those accounts configured. You could run it against machines, and it will list all the service accounts that you have listed on those particular machines, and you could export them as a CSV file. All right, and how is that going to help you further? Perfect. Once you have those in place, you could create a report profile, and that in short will tell you, and that can be associated to an alert. So let me give you a new report profile where you could go ahead and associate service accounts that you have. So you could export notify any activity changes on those service accounts, right? And I want let's do, yes, user modification, and I want anything that's happened, renamed, deleted, moved, password set, anything and everything that I want to be notified. And you could just add those service accounts right here. You could just pick those service accounts, and anything that happens from here on to these service accounts, you would be notified real time. You could save this report profile, and you could just jump on to alerts, and you could build a new alert profile and keep it as service accounts, and you could just pull that specific report profile that you just saved right now. So let's assume that it was the lapse password red, because the demo version does not allow me to save information. And once I associate the respective report profile, the rest of the operations are going to be similar. So anything that happens to your service account, you will be notified real time. And the icing on the cake is this is no longer a problem, because we are offering you a free tool, and in connection to the ADAudit Plus, you could get a lot of peace of mind. All right, so that is scenario two. So let's jump on to scenario three. This is the last scenario that I have. So I have covered most of the live use cases that have come across to us, and that was the pain points, the reason why people started trusting ADAudit Plus. So let me complete scenario three, and that is the permission changes across the domain. How would you measure its consequences, and how would you compare with and against what permission existed before? Okay, let's take this use case today. Right now there is a domain level permission change that has happened. And the, the, the blatant truth is the admin gets to know it, not real time, but when a user calls him, that there is some change in the functionality. I'm not able to access a particular file or printer, and my group membership has changed. So how would you wake up to that? How would you get to know that there was a domain level change that has happened? And how would you compare that with the existing value to what was before? So you need to measure those attributes to roll back so that you could make sure you have a management tool where you could go ahead and change those respective changes. For instance, if a group membership was added across the domain level, or for instance, the GPO was mismatched, or a schema level changes were performed, how would you track them? All right. So let me go back to ADAudit Plus reports. I've not given you a formal introduction into the tool, but I'm just building use cases, solutions to the use cases so that you could go ahead and play it yourself. So this is where I'm getting into the permission changes. You've got the domain level permission changes. So there you go. What will who an administrator is, of course, the vital W's, but do you see this new value and old value where you get to see more? It will tell you what was changed and what was before, and it will even give you a remark saying that these two was added to this specific user. All right, so you get to see success, everyone, and it'll even tell you whether it's been inherited or not. It's in short giving you a snapshot of SACL and the DACL. So this was before, this is the new value, and we could click on remarks, which will read out what was added. So this user who was deleted, so that's the reason I'm getting the SID, was added, and to this object and all descendant object. All right. So this is just not for domain level permission changes, OU permission changes. For instance, if you have an help desk person who creates users only on 2 OUs, and there has been a problem, he was able to create, there was a permission change across his OU creation list. So you could run through the OU permission list and see what were all changed for this particular user. So you could do a custom search, and based on the OU name, you could see what was changed, what was removed. GPO permission changes, very, very, very crucial. So you could go ahead and see what was changed, what was before. We just don't stop there. We look even on the version number. Why is version number important? That is, the version number is a key, because you might have a lot of GPOs, and monitoring the computer and the Windows settings is as important as monitoring the version changes. You might have changed the password policy, the account lockout policy. You might have increased the size of your logs. So monitoring every single thing on your GPO is way too crucial. All right, you've got user permission changes, schema permission changes. I'm not talking to every single person live right here, so asking questions would be like, I would be giving you the answer, but you would all accept what I'm going to say right now. Schema admins, domain admins, enterprise admins, you have to keep it to bare minimum. I hope in your organization you have just a limited amount of folks who have access to domain admin group membership, enterprise, and schema. Schema, in my recommendation, should just be 2 or 3, not even 3, just 2, you and another person. The reason is, what happens if your schema changes today? Will your organization function the way it was? Just a small change of the OU structure, just a small change of disabling an entire set of users. So schema is very, very important. That's the blueprint of your Active Directory. So in my opinion, you should just have minimum people talking into those changes. And I'm not just going to stop there. You need to monitor every single change that those users have done. All right. So with that, I have completed my scenarios, and now would be a best time to introduce you to ADAudit Plus. I apologize. The reason being, I had many things scheduled and planned, but I had a VM setup too, but that machine's volume didn't work today. So that's the reason I had to revert to mode B. So that's the reason I didn't do a formal introduction to ADAudit Plus then. All that I had intended to show you in Active Directory itself through my VM. But never mind, mistakes happen. So ADAudit Plus is a real-time Active Directory monitoring tool, which will give you real-time notification. And the tool is super simple. You can download it for free for the first 30 days, and you could measure and monitor everything that I promised on this webinar. So you have 125 plus default reports. You have 10 areas where you could peruse and monitor through. You've got an additional thing of files and member servers monitoring and reporting too. We just don't stop there. We give you the custom reporting functionality too, where you could go ahead and report, track service accounts, track administrative group policies, any folders and shares, because I told you this tool looks into your file servers and member servers too. And last but not the least is the alerting, which will send you an email when there is a change. You could set up your own alert just the way I showed you on these three scenarios. And now we have recently launched the scripting execution, where you could script and execute the problem. So you could loop through the scripts to notify your help desk tool. You could notify people, you could mitigate problem, and in case if you're using the file server combination, you could even kill the source of your ransomware. All right, there's a lot more, but I'm not going to touch into the file auditing functionality because that is a separate topic. I just wanted to focus on Active Directory. All right, so this, in my opinion, is the final step that I wanted to give it to you, the 5 simple steps for protection. You could report, you could monitor, you could do analysis, and then you need to be alerted. And last but not the least is putting them together, having everything together under one unified approach. So by the time you get to know that there's a problem through the script, you could shut down the problem, or you could negate yourself from that problem, and you could start working towards remediation. So all this straight from one particular tool, and that is called ADAudit Plus. I know I don't have much time with you, but there is a little promise from me. The time that I put back for the audio outage, you could reach out to me anytime for anything that I mentioned on this webinar. So with what I have showed, the topic was real-time Active Directory auditing, but once you have ADAudit Plus, you could be rest assured that you've got 0 to real-time alerting in no time. That will happen once you start downloading the tool, and you could race it against your Active Directory, and you could get to know whatever I mentioned on this webinar, and you could write to me your feedbacks. You could be real honest. You could give me tips on where I could improve, or what went nice, what was most appealing for you. I apologize, I didn't show you much of the native, but my hands were tight today. The laptop that I believe didn't respond to the way I wanted it to. So you could write to me for anything, be it a demo, or of course, if you want this video, you want my presentation, I would be more than happy to share it with you. It's harry@manageengine.com. If you have any questions, please feel free to post it in the chat window. I hope my colleagues have answered all the questions. So it was great talking to you all. And until next time, this is Harish signing off, and I hope to pull it off better next time. And thank you so much for attending this webinar. Thank you and have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.